Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Moonbeam Jellyfish. I am Emily, and I'm so glad that you're here. In today's video, we are going to be creating a cute little holiday wreath. I kind of mocked one up and practiced a little bit to kind of get a design that I was looking for. And then I went ahead and roughly sketched it on my paper. Generally speaking, whenever I try to just, you know, go crazy without putting a little bit of a drawing down, I don't end up liking the results. So I went ahead and planned this one out a little bit. There's a bow, and then these little circles are going to be like ornament balls. I used a circle template to create those. And in order to get my circle to kind of put all of the elements on, I didn't really have a circle template this big. So I had this bucket. So I just set it down and then traced it, and then I drew all my stuff over the top of it. Today I'm going to be using my Mungyo watercolor set. It's not one I've used in quite a while. The colors aren't as rich as maybe some of my other sets, but I just thought, hey, let's just get it out and give it a whirl. And then I'm also going to be using some metallic colors. Those are I'm going to use for the actual ornament balls. So I have several different greens mixed up on my palette here, along with a few reds, which I'll list all this in the description box. And then I also actually have a little bit of burnt sienna to maybe mix into some of the greens. It kind of makes them look a little bit more natural, but I don't worry about that too much. This is kind of just for fun. And so we're using reds, greens, and golds, I think, basically. I also have a plethora of brushes. I actually have some brushes that I've never used before. I just kind of practiced with them a little bit before I'm starting to film. So I'm going to kind of play with some of those and see what I think. We are going to start with the bow, and then we'll do the larger leaves. And then we're going to do kind of the little evergreen branches. And then we'll do the berries and maybe some of those little leaves, and then we'll do the ornaments last, because those are going to be opaque. So I can kind of, if I get the green or any of the greenery inside the balls, it'll get covered up. So I'm not going to be too worried about that. And like I said, I did sketch this, I think with a H2, which means it's a harder lead, so it doesn't smear too much. It kind of did a little bit, but then I always go over it with my knead eraser. That way, it doesn't smear. And I do have a Patreon now, so I will have my sketch also in there in a couple of different tiers. So feel free to check that out. I will also link that in the description box as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and start with the bow. And I'm just going to grab one of my brushes. I don't really care which one necessarily. I always kind of grab, and then if I need to change it, I will. So my paint is obviously activated, like I said, and it's a fairly creamy consistency. It's kind of like there'd be like a, really watery, like a wash, and then it's like a tea consistency, and then like a coffee. It's kind of like a tea consistency. And I always have a piece of paper. I could actually make that a little bit richer. I always have a piece of paper off to the side, because then that way I can also check if I like the brush I'm going to use. But I am going to go ahead and add a little bit more paint to that. And this is going to be kind of a quick painting. I'm not going to do 500 layers and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to go in and fill in the bow. Again, you're kind of wanting to minimize the amount of brush strokes so that it doesn't dry weird. And I'm just going to paint the whole thing in at once, because I do have my pencil line, so I can kind of see where I might want to have the little divisions of the ribbon. Always kind of pulling and pushing in the same direction. And you don't want to just outline, because then you'll literally see the outline, and then the paint will kind of dry differently than that does. Kind of like whenever I had a coloring book as a kid, I always outlined the drawing first in like my crayon color or my color pencil or whatever it may be. And we don't want to do that with watercolor. So I'm just going to keep filling this in, and then I'm going to go back in with a little bit of a darker shade to put in a little bit of a shadow, and I can always go back in and add some more shadows after it's dry. And I'm holding my brush like on the ferrule, kind of closest to the bristles, so that I have a little bit more control. When you hold it back here, you just don't have as much control. And since I really want to kind of stay in my lines and have it be, you know, fairly neat, I'm gonna do that. Grabbing more paint, loading up my brush. Go in with a little bit of a smaller brush with a much darker shade of red. I'm even going to put just a little bit of green in it to richen it up a little bit, just the tiniest bit. And it is very creamy. I want it to be creamier than what I've already put down so that it's not introducing a whole bunch more water. And then I'm just going to go in just kind of where there would be a little bit of a shadow, just kind of building that up a little bit. Like I said, I'm not going to go over this a ton of times, but I'm just dropping in some of that darker color, and it'll kind of diffuse naturally and more softly. This is also something you could do with colored pencils. You can bring colored pencils in even afterwards. It just depends on how much effort you want to put into it. If you've been here before, you know my videos are 900 hours, so I'm trying to make this one, you know, a little bit shorter. We'll see how it goes. You know, I get a little fussy, a little finicky. There we go. Now it's kind of hard to see. There you go, in the lighting. So I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'll zoom back out just a little bit. And then we're gonna go in and start putting in the larger leaves. You want to start with your larger items, except I'm not doing the balls yet. That way you put those in first, and then you start adding the smaller things to kind of fill in the space. So I have a couple new brushes, and these are big. I've never had them like this big before. I was at Kinokuniya, or Mitsuwa Marketplace in Chicago, and they have this really cool, like, I think it's called Kinokuniya is the bookstore. Anyway, they have some really cool art supplies in there as well. It's a Japanese store. So I'll show you here. And they're really cool because you can just press down and then lift up. You can even just stamp with them if you want to. I need to have a little bit more richer, thicker paint on my brush, but they're actually really neat. That one might be a little bit bigger than what I'm looking for, but I just want to show you because it's super fun. I've been trying to start playing with a few more of my brushes that I don't use very often. I'm actually going to make a video sometime soon, hopefully, probably after the holiday, kind of showing some of the brushes and how we can use them for different things. I think I'm going to use my number 2 Polina Bright because I like the tip of it so that I can get the tip of the leaf fairly pointy. That's what I'm kind of going for. And I will end up moving my board just a little bit. I did tape it, obviously, to a board. Even though I'm not doing wet on wet, I just like to try to keep it as crisp and clean and not buckle as much as possible. So I'm going to go into a couple of the leaves with just all the different greens. I'm not going to be super picky about it. I'm just going to pick a couple greens. I'll probably pick up different ones. I'll mix them together. We can start over here to this one here. And you can just push down and then lift up and then just kind of do the same thing on the other side. And I don't know that these are realistic leaves necessarily. Oh, one thing I was going to do, I just remembered up in the bow, I have this little flat brush. Another one that I don't really use too often, but it's clean. And there's just a little bit of water. Actually, I'm not going to use a lot of water. And I wanted to go in and just pick up just a tiny bit. Oh, couldn't see that. Sorry about that. Just a tiny bit, like right where it would be sticking out, because it's supposed to be, 3D, kind of rounded. So just in those little areas where it'd be like the top of the bow of the ribbon. This is called lifting, if you'd like to know. But there you go. It kind of lifts some of that off, and then it kind of gives it a little bit of a highlight. So wanted to do that before I forgot, which I already forgot. So I'm glad I remembered. All right, I'm going to just leave that leaf alone. And then I'm just going to, like I said, kind of keep working my way around. The reason I turn my board is because I always want the tip of the bristles to be kind of at the skinniest part of the leaf that I'm creating. So that's my method behind that. And again, I'm okay if I get a little bit inside this little ball here. I'm not trying to, but if I do, it's okay. I'm actually going in with a little bit of red just to kind of deepen in that green. Using just a little bit of the opposite color on the color wheel can kind of deepen in whatever color you're using. You have to be careful though. If you use too much, it can make it look muddy. So something to be mindful of. So I'm going to turn this way for a minute, obviously avoiding all the areas that are wet. I can kind of change the shape as I go if I don't like it. And then if I think there's a little bit too much water, I can just use a dry brush basically, and then I just touch the very tip of it, kind of like a sponge, and just soak that right up. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of a darker green on that one and just add a little bit there. And then you can even use a clean brush and lift some out. That way there's just a little bit, they're all a little bit different, not like monotone. Gives a little bit more interest. Starting soft and then pushing down farther or harder, and then letting up a little bit more at the tip of the leaf. And I'm okay leaving a little bit of a white spot. Soak some of that water up. Maybe wipe some of that off. And if you do while it's still wet, it will kind of fill the spot back in a little bit so there's not a super harsh line. And you can kind of give it an overview and be like, oh, maybe I should add another leaf here or there. I think I might go ahead and put one here as well. I mean, I can always throw in a few more at some point if I would like to. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and paint in the branches that have like the little leaves. And I'm using kind of a green that I added a little bit of ultramarine blue to, and just a little bit of a couple different greens, kind of like an olive green and a cadmium green light, I believe. And I'm using my number 3 round Princeton. I'm loading up my brush. It's very creamy. And I'm not pushing very heavy at the very tip. And then I push harder, and then I lift off. And I can add different greens as I'm going just to kind of change it up a little bit. Making leaves is a fun way to kind of practice and learn what your brushes can do. Because leaves are imperfect, so it's nice. You can feel like, oh gosh, I didn't really mess it up too much. Although there are sometimes I'm like, what in the world kind of leaf is that I created? And again, I just kind of mapped some out. I can add more if I want to. No reason to stress. It's just about how much pressure you put down, and then obviously how big the brush is as well, of how fat it can get. If you have a really fat brush and you push down, then it's going to spread those bristles and get really big. You can go back in and add a little bit of a shadow to some of them if you want, just to add a little bit more interest. And now I'm going to go in and begin putting in the little evergreen branches. And for that, I'm going to use this 1/4 inch Princeton Dagger brush. These will be the branches that are the most on the wreath. And again, I'll be using all different colors with a fairly creamy consistency of paint. You can draw kind of the center if you want to first. And then I just start kind of, flicking my brush. And you can make them all overlap some of the other leaves if you want. Then you can kind of turn it this way and add just a few more needles so it would be like it's 3D. They're not all going out to the side. Some are going, into the center as well. A lot of times I've used a liner brush to create these, but I wanted to just try something a little bit different, see what I think. You just want to try to make them look full is what we're going for. And I will be putting the branches that have a little bit of berries as well in here. I think that's pretty good for now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and do the branches with the berries. I'm going to dry this first really quick. That way they don't run together, and then I'll be right back. All right, let's do the little berry branches. And I'm going to be using my rigger, #1 rigger brush, to kind of put in the little branch part. And then I'm going to be using my #6 round Princeton. That can focus. No? Okay. So I'm going to put in the little branch part first, just so I can see kind of where I want it to be. Again, I did pencil in some stuff. As long as it's not colored over with watercolor, I'll be able to erase it at the end. And I think I'm actually going to use the like a little bit of burnt sienna for the branches instead of green, just to kind of break it up. There's a lot of green in this. So I'm going to put the little branch, and then I'm going to go in with that #6, and I'm going to go in with just a little bit of water first and make the little circles. And then I'm going to dab off my brush, and then I'm going to bring in some red. And then there's going to be a little bit of red still on my brush because all I did was just rinse it a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some more little circles. I'm going to go in with a little bit of a darker and just kind of touch the tip of my brush. And I'm okay. They don't need to be absolutely perfect. You can leave a little highlight. They can be a little bit of a different sizes. And when I go in with the darker color, it's a lot more creamy. So it's more paint than water. There's that. And, I'll take a second and kind of look at it and see what I feel like I might want to do. I kind of feel like there needs to be one here, but then I might want to draw one more somewhere. I like to do things in odd numbers, but I definitely think I think one needs to be like right here. Well, we'll give it a try. Maybe out like that. It can be kind of a shorter branch. I just felt like there was way too much red. Or not too much red, but I wanted to have a little bit more balance. I think that might be okay because the bow is red, so that could be kind of the fifth element, which is a great movie, by the way. I think I'm going to go ahead and color in the bulbs, and then I can go from there and see if there's any more additional greenery or anything that I want to add. So we'll do that. I'm going to mix up that gold and a little bit of this bronze color. That way I have two different shades to work with. So I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Okay, I have this stirred up really well. One thing with metallics is you have to keep them stirred up as you grab them out, or the kind of the sparkle, the metallic kind of settles to the bottom. So my brush is just a little bit damp. It's not super soaking wet. I'm going to go in first with this gold color. You really want to load your brush up as well. When I say that, it means you go in and you really pick that paint up. You're not just putting just the tip of your brush. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to bring in, oh gosh, I have brushes everywhere. That darker, more bronzy color. But I'm just going to kind of add it into a few spots so it'd be kind of like a shadow. Adding a little bit more of that just plain gold back in. And then picking up some of that darker bronze. Let me tilt this so you can see it. There we go. And again, you can always go back in and add a little bit more of a shadow if you want to when it dries. Just following my pencil lines as well as I can, which is why I have to turn my paper. I always want to keep the tip of my brush right along the edge of whatever line I'm kind of trying to stay inside of. I'm going to switch to a different brush for a second, and I'm actually going to pick a little bit of that up. I'm even going to go back over here and pick a little bit of it up in order to kind of create a highlight. And I'm going to go in with that more bronzy color. I'm going to go to a little bit of a smaller brush to see if I can get a little bit more control putting that color in there since it got a little bit away from me. I always want my brush to be big enough to put as much paint down as fast as I can, but if I feel like I'm just not going to have as much control, I will switch to a little bit of a smaller brush. You'll have to let me know if you turn your painting around all the time as well. Oh, grief. While it's still wet, I'm going to go in with that bronzy color again. You just want to kind of go in a circular motion since it is a circle. Go back in and add a little bit over here. All right, so I cleaned my brush. It's just barely damp. I'm going to go in and pick some of that up to kind of create a highlight. Like so. I definitely think it needs a little bit more to fill it in some more. Maybe I'll put a leaf right here. We'll try it. We will try it. I feel like there should be something right here, but I don't know for sure what I think. Maybe even just something coming out up this way. Yeah, we'll give it a try. It won't be very big, very long, because obviously it's a short area. grief. I feel like now I need one on this side. I could also just go in and put in just a few little baby gold balls just to kind of fill in some space as well. I could even bring in a few red ones, just not on a whole branch, but just some single berries to add in a little bit more red in a couple of spots as well. Again, see, if you've been here before, you know, I keep going and going and going, and then my videos are so long. That's why I end up kind of trying to speed them up sometimes, because I know that our attention span isn't always amazing these days, for sure. I'm going to go in with some red now. Just add some kind of random berries into a few spots. Okay, I'm like overthinking it, so we're going to go with this for now. I am going to dry this so that way I can use the liner and not mess them up. You don't want to use a liner with it wet. It can ruin it, obviously. So I'm going to dry it and I'll be right back. I forgot to splatter. I want to splatter before I outline, I decided. And I'm going to do the gold, I believe. And also, if you've been here before, you know that I love the splatter. I can get a little carried away with the splatter, but you know what? That's okay. I like the pizzazz. I'm gonna dry it and I'll be right back. I ended up adding a few more little elements. You'll see it's a little bit different. You'll see like in the picture, if you rewind a little bit, I was just getting a little bit crazy and this video is already taking forever. So I've got some liners, 0.3, 0.4, and a Posca. And I'm just going to use a little bit different line weights depending on what I am working on. And I'm just going to do kind of sketchy lines where I don't just press the whole time. I'll like kind of pick up the pen a little bit. And I don't have to outline everything. We'll see if I want to outline the balls. I am going to just kind of go in and do a few little areas. Put in some of the veins maybe, and some of those leaves. And it's nice sometimes to go outside. You don't have to outline it exactly. I've talked about using different line weights in the past. It just adds more interest to your drawing. I'm trying to decide if I want to outline the gold balls or not. Yeah. I think I'll start with this number 4. No, I'm going to use the Posca because this is a bigger focus. But again, I'm just going to do a light, kind of sketchy outline. Just kind of kissing it, if you will, with the liner. Just to kind of have a little bit of consistency. And after you see mine, you can always decide what you want to do. And if we get really crazy, we can bring in some white and just bring in just a few more little highlights. Can put a few in the little berries if you don't have a white spot in the berry already. Go. Yeah, I like it. I think I did a wreath last year. It's a lot smaller, and I think I wrote joy. I'll have to link that video as well. But yeah, I think this is super cute. I like it. You'll have to let me know what you think. And again, I will link my Patreon, and you can find out some more about that. I'd love for you to check it out. And of course, you can also find me on Facebook and Blue Sky. So I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for joining me, and take care of yourselves.